Venus and Star Blessings. Welcome back, everybody. As promised, I have the wonderful, and I forgot to tell you this before when we were chatting, Arielle. I think of you as our Leo sort of mother of the VSP. That's the queen, right? Because you've got Venus in Leo as well.
And I guess that's why I'm wearing the queen bee necklace.
Right. And I was thinking about that today.
She's my talisman. She's my totem to keep me, strong during this Leo period, because I have been suffering with some health issues this year. So I'm hoping that the Leo will kick me back into gear.
Yeah, beautiful. For those of you that don't know, Arielle Guttman is an author, an astrologer. She delivers programs, training, teaching, all sorts of things. She's got some beautiful retreats coming up in Greece, which I just wish I could be there for that. That's my homeland, my motherland. So I'm very envious that you're doing that, but very proud of you that you are doing that as well. I think that's wonderful. So Arielle offers a lot of different things. At the end of this video, in the description below, I'll have Arielle Guttman's details to her website and so on and so forth, and you can very easily contact her, ask her questions about her programs, her books, and anything you like. Some of you, or a lot of you actually, are very, very aware of Arielle and all the work that she's done. And the reason I call you our queen of the VSP is because I feel like you're this queen mother to the astrological communities with the work that you've done, with that beautiful Venus book that you've done, and how that's, just gradually, it's just filtering through and shining through in a lot of people's consciousness and awareness, so it's very, very special, very, very special. And I mean, certainly I'll speak for myself at least. When I came across your material and your work and your book, I haven't stopped. I just have not stopped working with the Venus star point. Looking at it in charts, looking at it in famous people's charts, looking at it for collective events and so on and so forth. I'm just like obsessed with that, but I am a Scorpio Venus star point, so that makes me a little bit obsessed with it. Anyway, so today...
Well, thank you for those kind words. I haven't thought of myself as a queen, but mother, maybe the mother of the Venus star.
Venus in Leo,
perhaps soon to be the grandmother of it, because lots of youngsters are being trained in the program now. So I have a lot of followers coming after me, and it's very gratifying to see that so many people around the world have been catching on to it and really seeing the beauty of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about the Cazimi conjunction, the Sun-Venus conjunction in Leo, which is Venus retrograde in Leo, which is a new cycle beginning. It's a morning star. There's lots of things we're going to say about that. And we're also going to look at Sinead O'Connor's chart. I'm going to share some things that I've actually discovered upon looking at her chart. And I think you may bring up Tina Turner as well. So two wonderful, powerful powerhouse women, both of them in their own right, musically and as individuals as well. They're so inspiring, and they're great losses actually, for us, all of us really. There's been, I personally, with Sinead O'Connor and with Tina Turner as well, I've got a very complex relationship with grief, just on a personal level, without going into the information about that. So when something comes up in my life, even if it's a person that I don't know, and they transcend that process of grief is so intense for me. So when Sinead transcended a couple of weeks ago, I think I took about 2 weeks to communicate to people again. I just went into that sort of real quiet, deep feeling space, which is whilst Venus was retrograde. But anyway, there's lots of things I want to say about Sinead, and that includes Venus's invisibility and visibility as well. There's just a few really interesting factors around that with her transcendence and things like that. But I'll hand it over to you, and maybe we'll start with just Venus in Leo and the Cazimi conjunction coming up on the 13th of August, which I'm really super excited about. And I think many people are.
All right, so I'm going to thank you. I can't wait to see Sinead's chart. I haven't looked at it personally, so I'm looking forward to our discussion about that. And you know, you said you felt a connection to her. I have always felt such a strong connection to Tina Turner because she started out, she and Ike and later her, started out in St. Louis, Missouri, which is the city I was born in. And though she is 10 years older than me, you know, so I was pretty much a youngster because she was young when she started performing, like, you know, 19, maybe 18, 19, maybe even 17, 18, 19. So I was still kind of a child. But she also, before she started performing, she worked as a nurse's as a nurse or a nurse's aide in the hospital that I was born in.
Oh, wow.
So there's, you know, there's this feeling, and I've always had this feeling, especially about hospitals, and especially because hospitals are where people die and where people are born. And so I've always had this really strange feeling around hospitals that there are so many souls hanging, hovering around. Call them ghosts, call them souls, whatever, you know, that their spirits, their essences are near, are always there.
I agree.
And so I don't know. I just think it was something that touched me very deeply when when I heard the news of her passing, even though we expect this, you know. And as a Scorpio star point, you know this, we all know this. Death is a part of life. We're all going to die. You know, we always try to avoid the inevitable and put it off. And our culture is not very good at accepting it and welcoming it and preparing for it even, you know. The main preparation we do is, you know, who am I going to leave my possessions to or something, you know, and get my papers in order. But do we prepare ourselves psychologically? Do we prepare ourselves emotionally? Do we prepare ourselves for the healing journey and the passage that's ahead? Because other than passing through the birth canal, it's the largest event of our life, passing through the death canal. And I think they're very similar. But anyway, so I was very touched. I was deeply touched. I am touched by a lot of the people when I hear of their passing, like Sinead also, but I didn't have the same kind of personal relationship with her as you do. I do think that these people that are in the public eye that have become performance artists that are so talented and that reach so many people through their own pain, who perform, who express their talent through their own pain, touches a chord in all of us. And you and I have actually talked about this before. I think the last time we chatted, it was about the chart of Prince, and you know what a magnetic quality he had, but also what a magnificent ability he had to touch people and really transform them through the, you know, through his music. And so it does say something to us. But with Sinead and for Tina, I think they're more than performance artists and talented. They were both women who spoke to power, who stood up to power, and they were not in a position at all they had nothing backing them, really. They just had the courage to do it and the conviction of their will to do it. And that is really admirable. That is something to be celebrated. Because there are so many situations in life where we don't stand up or speak up. And it is, you know, we suffer as a result.
Absolutely.
And we perpetuate the same pain.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah. And courage is really the best word to describe it, and one of the best words for Venus in Leo. You know, it does take tremendous courage to walk your truth, to walk your path, to be authentic, to speak from your heart, to speak and not fear being judged, ridiculed, not accepted, you know, disliked, etc. Both those women did that, you know, in their own unique way. Absolutely.
Right, right, exactly, exactly. Well, okay, so for those of you that don't know the Venus star, I'm going to share my screen and let you see what I've got. These are a few slides that I have prepared. This pattern is a computer generated graphic of the Earth and Venus going around the sun, and it describes 8 full orbital cycles. And as you can see in the middle of that, there's a beautiful 5-petaled flower. I mean, even a computer graphic can make this thing look beautiful, like an unfolding rose. And that's what Venus is. She's always been called the rose, the flower, that of beauty, that brings beauty to us. And beauty sometimes in life, and I don't mean outer beauty, you know, how beautiful is somebody to look at, or how beautiful is something. That's how the culture pretty much interprets it. But we're talking here about inner beauty. We're talking about what is on the inside. What is a beautiful soul? What is a beautiful person? What is a beautiful heart? You know. So this graphic, I love it because I didn't create this graphic. This was created from somebody somewhere out there in cyberland that knows how to do these kinds of things. But we didn't actually, until modern times, we didn't really actually know that Venus and Earth created this beautiful rose pattern, this 5-petaled flower. Specifically until we could see not only through telescopes, which were a more modern invention, but through computer graphics, which were an even more modern invention. But the ancients did know. The ancients did know about her 5 points. And the Maya called it the 5 seasonal risings of Venus. And they had observatory points. They have temples. I've been to the Venus temple in the Maya jungle that looked at it from a height to observe where Venus was at these different points. And they represented each of those 5 points was given a different animal like feature, same as our zodiac, similar to our zodiac, the 12 signs, which are mostly animals. There's a few humans in there, but it kind of characterizes the nature of the signs that way. So the ancient Greeks knew about it. They knew that Venus in the morning and Venus in the evening was something, it was the same planet. It was the same thing. They knew she disappeared for a while. And that's really what's happening now. We are in the in-between phase. When Venus goes retrograde, she's in a very unique place in her orbit, especially when she's retrograde and disappearing, because she's ending up a cycle that began her synodic cycle, which means, one full cycle around, is 584 days. And that's 1.6 years. 1.6 Earth years. And 1.6 is the equation that Venus represents. It's called phi or phi. It's phi ratio. It's also called the golden mean. It's also called beauty and harmony by mathematicians, artists, architects, Pythagoras, going all the way back. So what the ancients knew, that Venus represented harmony and beauty, wasn't just, oh, that planet in the sky is pretty and bright. We'll call her the goddess of harmony and love. No, there was an actual reason for it. In her actual orbit with Earth around the sun, she creates that golden mean over and over and over again. It's a spiral, it's a star, it's lots of things. It's a heart shape.
Mm.
The heart is actually what we draw as a human as a heart is two spirals going in and facing each other,
Oh,
you
that's
know? So it's shells, beautiful shells. She was born of the sea. So there's a lot of things about even looking at this image that can bring you into that place of harmony and beauty and inner peace.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is one of my favorite depictions of it. The heart and the star of our cosmos. You can see from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 and back to 1. This is our 5-pointed star that every 1.6 years Venus does with her retrograde. And so you can see the star that she forms. You can see also in the orbit that heart shape. And you can also see the retrograde loops at each star point. Those darker pink loops are actually loops. You know, people think that when a planet goes retrograde, especially something like Mercury or Venus, that it just goes up and then back and then up again. Not at all.
Yeah.
It's actually going off road. It's turning off. It's taking another course. It's either going south when it was going north, or it's going west when it was going east, but it's taking a different road for a while. And so what happens to us during that retrograde is we are contemplating and pondering things, especially with Mercury retrograde. You know, we're rethinking situations. Maybe a really great time to edit a project that you're working on because it's Mercury and it's the mental and logical mind. But Venus retrograde is different. Venus is the heart mind. And the heart mind is like 5,000 times more powerful than the brain. In terms of the energy it emanates and receives. And if we start doing our thinking with the heart, and really trusting that, the heart doesn't lie to us. The mind does lie to us. The mind talks us in and out of things and presents things in, curious ways. And even Mercury, who represents the mind, was always called the little trickster. Even more so when Mercury goes retrograde. And there's many stories in mythology about that, about Mercury's little tricks and games. Mercury's also the master of games. But the real heart-centered universe that we all belong to is controlled by Venus. And she is this is the operating system, the Venus star point. This is the operating system for heart connection in our cosmos. And I do call her the cosmic heartbeat. And if you want to study more about her cycle, you can. There are many numbers that are useful to know. Like every 9 months, she goes from one star point to the next. But every 1.6 years, one of those is a retrograde. Every 4 years, she returns to the same sign, opposite phase. Like instead of new moon, it would be a full moon. It's like new Venus, full Venus.
And
but
so
every 8 years,
it's sorry to interrupt you. At the moment, the Venus Leo retrograde cycle, the conjunction that occurs on the 13th, that's like a new moon phase, right? That's like a new moon phase, basically.
Yeah. When it's retrograde, this is my interpretation. Other astrologers might tell you differently. I have heard people say they think that the new Venus cycle starts at her superior conjunction on the far side of the sun. But I don't get that at all. To me, that's like a full moon. That's not the start of the cycle. This is the start of the cycle, the retrograde. And from the retrograde that we're in now, she will emerge as a morning star. So if you are a morning star Venus, the conjunction before birth was a retrograde. If you are an evening star, the conjunction before birth was direct. on the far side of the sun. This is where she's perigee, closest to the earth.
Yeah.
So she manifests her energy on the earth more. And I will tell you, the retrograde Venus, according to some ancients, myths, she came out of her retrograde when she emerged as the morning star, which she will do in about a week or 10 days. You know, you've probably been watching her, for you guys, all winter, but for us all summer.
Yeah.
In the evening sky, so beautiful, so romantic. And I think that's why the ancients also decided she was going to be called the love goddess, because I think Venus at night in the night sky has so much to do with romance. You know, you're strolling along and at night and you see this right after sunset, you just have watched the sunset, which is romantic in itself, but then you see this beautiful star emerging right after sunset, coming first very faintly into view, and then within an hour after sunset, getting brighter and brighter and brighter. That's usually Venus in the evening sky. And you can see her like this for about 7 months. So it's every night for about 7 months.
I just wanted to say something to that, which I really only just recently witnessed actually with my own eyes, because now I live in the western side. So I've been watching Venus in the evening sky, you know, these last, 7-8 months, whatever it's been. And what I realized is that when she's born as an evening star, right, she comes in quite quickly. Sorry, the other way around. She comes in very, very slowly, right? When she's born as an evening star. By the time you see the sky, like it's like this entrance that she makes, like this mysterious, you know, this beautiful, mysterious goddess that just comes in a very sort of fluid kind of way, you know, very much if we think about it from the point of view of evening star qualities, right? What the evening star represents. And then as she's preparing to leave her evening star phase, she vanishes, bang, just like one night she's there and the next night she's completely gone. So she comes in slowly and she vanishes very quickly. And with the morning star, it's the reverse. It's the opposite.
Right.
And I've been,
right. Absolutely. Yeah.
I was just blown away by that, because before I moved into this place, I was living on the east. So I observed her morning cycles the whole time.
Yeah.
Now I got to witness the other side of it, you see. So it's been, because we get so, you know, we become so interested or distracted by reading books and, you know, being on our computers and things like that. But when you are living either on the east or the west and you have the chance to see her in either of those phases, that's the best lived experience, embodied experience of the Venus star, right? Of that energy.
Yeah.
Her vibration. So I just want,
it's lovely if you have a western view and an eastern view from where you live. Like I'm on an upper floor. I live on an upper floor right now. So I see the full moon rising in the east, big and beautiful, from my veranda. But I live also, you know, a 5-minute walk to the seafront, which faces west.
Nice.
So at sunset, I'm usually down at the sea watching sunset and watching Venus come up after. But now I'll be sitting on my veranda watching Venus come up in the morning sky.
Beautiful.
If I can remember to get up that early.
It is
because you have to get up early to watch Venus in the morning sky. But the thing you were saying about how fast and slow, that's definitely a part of this whole thing. And I have a page in my book about morning star, evening star Venuses and how they're different. In astrology, we've always had 2 signs that rule Venus, that Venus rules. I don't like the term ruler. I'd rather say the guardian of the sign, but most people know about rulership. It's an archaic term. We don't need rulers anymore. Plus, Venus doesn't like being a ruler anyway. She likes to be a helper, maybe a guide.
Mm, mm.
Libra and Taurus, you could summarize the fact that Taurus really embodies the more earth-based Venus morning star, embodied, grounded, feet on the ground, in the body, a doer, closest to the earth, you know, all that. Whereas the evening star Venus takes on more of the Libra qualities, up in the air, far away,
Mm.
in the head, in the mind, not so much in the body, in the spirit, that kind of thing. So there are two distinct types of Venuses. So it's worth looking at your own chart too to see, am I a morning star? Am I an evening star?
Mm.
And then how close to the Cazimi was I born? Because this is another tiny little detail, but it's important.
Yes.
You might say, okay, I'm a morning star, but let's say you were born only 2 weeks after that morning star occurred, maybe even only 1 week after that morning star occurred. The whole 9 months in utero, you were actually an evening star in your development phase, okay? And so if you are a morning star just right occurring around the time of your birth, you don't come in actively embodying morning star qualities. You are actually in a transition phase until at least, I'd say, give it a good 30 years, 20 to 30 years of your life that you are like around the Saturn return. But because I think it takes that amount of time to really get into, you're integrating, you're going from, that yang or that male oriented kind of Venus to that yin receptive female type Venus. And this doesn't really have to do with physical gender, but it definitely, masculine and feminine are principles used actually as, technical terms, as scientific terms too, in terms of just how they act or react when you're using them in as substances or energies, let's say. So I don't want anybody getting overly upset about my use of feminine or masculine here, but that's what they relate to. But I'm always going to be calling Venus, a goddess and a feminine presence, because that's how she's come down. That's her mythology. That's her archetype. Archetypes are here for a reason. Some of them are male, some of them are female. It doesn't mean that just because the Venus archetype is a female, that you as a man can't have a ton of that. I've had many men come to me for astrological sessions that say, gosh, Venus is so strong in my chart. I'm Libra rising, I'm a Taurus sun, I've got Venus conjunct this, I've got blah, 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 well, yeah, you are. You're very Venusian. You're a carrier of Venusian energy for sure, you know. So, but how does that work? It's the same for women. We're seeing a lot of Mars, Pluto, Aries, Scorpio, star point women these days that, are embodied warriors, and that used to be designated as a very masculine kind of thing, but no, they're coming through female bodies. So there's a lot of mixing up going on now. I think there always has been, because we've always had those kind of energies in this guy, but it's only recently that we've allowed men to become in tune more with their feminine, softer side, even exploring the idea of becoming transgender. It's only recently that the society and the culture has caught up to having women claim their power and their authority and their warrior side in the world and in life. So we are at a some say we're at a frightening kind of phase regarding all this gender mix up. But I think in other ways, I think let a person be what they are, let them just, what's inside you to be. And that's really going back to the Venus star. That's really where we center ourselves. We center ourselves in our own heart. It's nobody else's. It's nobody else's mind heart. We center ourselves in our heart with, what do I feel? What do I need? What do I want? What do I have to give? What do I have to share? What do I have? What gives me joy in life?
Yeah, and two things that come to mind with everything you just said. The first thing is that, the Venus star points, when we're talking about the morning star, that's the warrior goddess, that's the Pallas Athena side of Venus, right? And then when we're talking about the evening star, that's the Aphrodite side of Venus, the one that has a lot more correspondence to love, as it were, right? And then the other thing I wanted to say as well is, with regards to being in our heart, the Venus star point is so powerful to helping us really awaken to that heart space, right? Because when you think about the Venus star point, which we don't often talk about, is the alignment between Earth, Sun, and Venus, right? So that's a pattern of energy that you could say is like spirit, the sun, spirit, coming through the heart, Venus, to manifest on the earth, right? So we're bringing our spirit energy through our heart to bring this beauty or love or gifts or talent or whatever it is, that we want to bring through, right? So when I think of the Venus star that way, I love that sort of definition or that metaphor. It's so beautiful to think of it in that way.
And I'd have to say that is a beautiful way to describe it. The way I have interpreted it was this: it's because it's the sun, Venus, and the earth all lined up. The only difference is, in a morning star, Venus is between the sun and the earth, and in an evening star, the sun is between Venus and the earth. So, but the components are the same, even though they're placed differently. It's still the light of the sun, the love of Venus, and the body of Earth, so that it infused into us in the Cazimi, which is what the star point is when they're all lined up like that. And that's how it's different from your natal Venus. Your natal Venus is just Venus by herself going around this track. Behind me, there's this thin blue line. Okay, so all the planets move around a track around the sun. And of course, they're in different lanes, like when you're watching runners, running a race around a track. They're in different lanes, but they are basically moving along just on that lane by themselves. And then you capture a photograph of, one moment during that race. And that's wherever the runners happen to be, in this case, the planets. That's your birth chart. That's where they were when you were born. But in the case of the Venus star point, it's before you were born. It's when, at a certain point in time, it could be a week before you were born, it could be 5 months before you were born, but at some point within the last 9 months before you were born, it's Venus, Sun, and the Earth all lined up. So it gives us a much more powerful set of conditions going on there for Venus coming through the inside rather than the outside. And we can talk more about that later when we look at charts. I'm going to run through these slides pretty quickly so we can get on to the chart discussion. Oh, let's see what's next. So these are the 5 points of the current Venus star. Just in case anybody is tracking this, the picture in the middle is the 2020 star. So don't look at those degrees because it's moved slightly since then. But that's the basic pattern still. But right now, we're ending the cycle of the 18 Capricorn star that was in January of 22, the retrograde. Then in October, we had the first Libra star point of our current time line, 29 Libra, the end of Scorpio. That was a big one, that shift from Scorpio to Libra.
Massive.
And we're still in the middle of that.
Yeah. I just want to say something about that from a personal perspective anyway, because I was aware of it for a long time, that is its ingress state and so forth. And because it's exactly opposite my own Mercury and my Sun, like exactly. And I thought, what's that going to be for me? I was thinking about that for a long time. And I know what it is because I've just put together a course that I'll be teaching, which starts this month actually. So, and that really happened just literally like that, because I've got a lot of old material, because I used to teach about 25 years ago. So I had a lot of material on notes and stuff like that. So I've literally just transferred a lot of material onto my computer and just added a whole bunch of new stuff as well, obviously. But anyway, the point being that I was wondering what that Libran star point was going to be for me. And yeah, that's what it seems to be for me, at least at this point anyway, which is amazing. It's because I'm doing something that I love from my heart, right? And it's
exactly.
So yeah, just wanted to share that.
Well, this is what got me into kind of excited about another whole level of Venus when I was doing the research. Was you would expect the Venus star point to let's say describe or define certain periods in your life for relationships, because she is a relationship goddess, but she's so much more than that. The star point, and that's why these degrees are important to look at, because it moves so slowly that she's hovering around these degrees for a minimum of 4 years and ultimately 8 years, sometimes even 12 years. If she's moving back and forth across a degree, which she can for 12 or 16 years. For instance, this Gemini star point at 14 Gemini, was it like 15 Gemini in 2012? And, so from 2012 to 2024, 12 full years, she's been hovering between 15, 14, and 13 Gemini. So if you have something there, or in Sagittarius, or in any 14, 15 mutable, or in any sign, really, because she's activating a point. She's giving aspects to a point. So you want to look at these degrees in your own chart and see, oh, what is it opening up for me? So in that case, I don't find what you just said surprising at all, because it always seems to bring forth something. Her transit over a certain degree, the star point affecting a certain degree relative to your own chart and your own degrees, is like, wow. Sometimes it appears out of nowhere like magic. Other times it's sort of like something you've been planning and waiting for, and you think, oh, this is never going to happen. And suddenly that star point gets there and it happens. So yeah, it's a really good thing to watch.
Absolutely.
So look at, it's not a perfect star. Also, you'll see that if it were a perfect star, each of these 5 points would be an exact 72 degrees or quintile relationship from one another, which is also called the fifth harmonic in astrology, the circle divided by 5. The thing about using the Venus star point and really connecting to it deeply is that it's the fifth harmonic that we're working with. In astrology, we almost always work with the fourth harmonic, the second, the second harmonic is, the polarity. The third harmonic is the trine, the triad. The fourth harmonic, the squares. But the fifth harmonic is not a left brain function like the others. It's very much a right brain function. And so we do have to switch hemispheres of our brain in order to actually think like this and to understand this. And so a lot of people don't get it right away if they have trouble switching hemispheres from what they're used to thinking of with astrology. Because even though astrology is a mystical subject and it's very, it can take you out into cosmic dimensions and kind of take you out of left brain thinking, to actually do a chart and understand it and delineate it is very left brain thinking, because you have to do all these, calculations and figure out what the aspects are and look at numbers and all that. That's very mechanical left brain kind of thing. So we're using our right brains to really look at the Venus star, the quintile, the fifth harmonic, which also includes the biquintile. Point to point here, point Gemini to point Aries would be like a quintile, but point Gemini to point Capricorn here would be a biquintile. So basically, there we have it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That reminds me actually, which I can show in a moment, but the chart for when Venus actually went retrograde, I don't know if you've looked at that, but it was a mind-boggling chart. It was Venus involved in a mystic rectangle, and forming two yachts, was it? I think I'll bring up the chart later because it's just
between Pluto and Neptune also.
Right.
Yeah.
But on the other side, she was at the midpoint of the sun and the moon. And that's what intrigued me the most. She's actually at the midpoint of the masculine, the primary, let's say, masculine and feminine symbols of the chart, sun and the moon, queen and king, the fastest moving bodies. And then at the other end, she's opposite the two furthest planets away from us, Neptune and Pluto. And just that dynamic, within that mystic rectangles is just it's like a big juice of it's creative juice, to the absolute maximum hilt. A mystic rectangle, that's what it is. It's just creative juice flowing through and through. But anyway, the fact that she was in the midpoint of the sun and the moon, two fastest moving planets, as it were, and on the other end, Neptune, Pluto, I thought, because I've never really, I do look at charts for when planets go retrograde, but on this particular one, I just paid a lot more attention, with Venus going retrograde, which I think was it the 23rd of July from memory, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I thought, and I wanted to ask your opinion actually, because that's got to be important, right? With energy patterns of Venus going retrograde, and how that.
Yeah, and because Venus is more than just, the basic things that we have always thought about Venus, because Venus does operate in this star clock behind the zodiac and is very important to the timeline of history, historical events and things on Earth, which I've demonstrated and found over and over again in my research to be true. So I was looking for what, Pluto and Neptune in mythology actually govern the two most deepest, most invisible, most mysterious realms that there are. Deep under the ocean, Neptune, Poseidon, And we have yet to explore the depths of the ocean. There's so much there that we have no idea about. In fact, I watched a video recently that said we know more about space and our solar system than we do about our own ocean, Earth's own ocean, and what's underground.
That doesn't surprise me.
The other realm of Earth that we don't know much about is Pluto, the Plutonian realm beneath the Earth, the riches, the mineral wealth, the whatever, the oil, whatever we're dealing with. Well, Neptune and Pluto both have domains of, mineral wealth, oil, all of this things beneath the earth, gemstones, minerals, etc., gold.
Yeah.
But then we had those personal planets, and we had this pattern set up, which we have been having. And Pluto and Neptune are also at the very end of signs that they're just about ready to change over into a new, we're almost about ready to give birth to a new world. And Saturn and Neptune together in Pisces are going to go to the end of Pisces together and then flip over into Aries together at the same time, which is an extraordinary kind of thing that we're going to be having in our lifetime.
It really is.
It's the alpha omega point, and that's the conference, that's the retreat we're doing in Greece next year about that. But also the Venus star point, as you can see here, 3 degrees Aries, it's heading towards 0 Aries, also the alpha omega point. So the world as we know it, conditions in the world as we know it are ending and new ones are beginning. And more will be revealed about this, but what really hit the news cycle, what really hit me from the news cycle in these past few weeks since Venus has gone retrograde is, and I don't know if you guys are seeing it in Australia, but I've definitely been seeing it, is that the evidence now of alien life on Earth has been documented and confirmed, and all the secrets and all the hidden archives are being opened up, and all these people in high positions are telling what they've seen and what they've examined, and that this is real, and that discoveries are being made even under the earth, inside the earth, the portals from the North Pole, the South Pole, especially at Antarctica, going into worlds inside. I mean, we have so much information to find out about things we have not been able to see, and things we knew were happening, because a lot of times Neptune operates on pure faith. It's what we believe in. We don't necessarily see it or have any evidence that it's real, but we believe in it. In fact, religion is based a lot on that premise. There's never been any proof of anything real in terms of what's created the world or how it was created, or but we have all these stories that tell us this is how it was, and we believe them. Okay, so it's belief, it's the faith, it's faith and belief and trust in something. And even people who have always said, okay, there's aliens out there and I know it, but nobody believed them. It's sort of like, well, now we're seeing that maybe you were right after all. I mean, there's going to be other things too, but that was what hit me immediately about this whole pattern that's going on in the sky right now. I thought it was interesting, and it's leading us into this alpha omega point where, we've got artificial intelligence coming in to the human, to stand side by side with humans. And, is that going to be a threat, or is that going to be helpful to us?
Could be both.
Right now, it looks like they could be very helpful in some cases.
But in the wrong hands.
But could be, yeah. Again, in the right hands, it could be helpful. In the wrong hands, it could be very destructive. And at the same time, the movie Oppenheimer came out about the atomic bomb. And, you know, that is very Plutonian as well. So, and we're revisiting that whole scenario.
Yeah, I think with Pluto in Aquarius, we are going to see the most peculiar, most bizarre, strangest things that we could not even conceive of in our own so-called conscious imagination. I really believe that.
Right. Right.
So, but anyway, we're getting a bit off topic. I want to go back to the Venus star point because I just want people to take away from this as well how they might be able to just think about it for themselves at the moment. So where is Leo in their birth chart? Are they a morning or evening star at birth? That's important. This Leo Venus star point was Virgo. It changed over in 1987, I think it was, wasn't it? Into Leo.
Yeah.
Right. That's
the
important point.
The beginning of the new age was the 1987 Leo, the birth of the Leo star point. It was called the harmonic convergence, and it was celebrated all around the world at sacred spots. And it gave birth to this whole new, what journalists defined and historians have defined as the official beginning of the new age.
Right. Yeah, I think the Venus Leo star point is freaking amazing, and the art and music and musicians that everything that's being created out of that is just unbelievable. I love it personally. But anyway, I'll bring that up again when we look at Sinead, because there's just some really interesting correspondences there with her chart with the Venus Leo star point, and in fact her first album. We'll get to that.
Right.
Right. But just from the point of view,
all right,
yeah, what people can sort of contemplate on or think about at the moment with this Sun-Venus conjunction, what would you say to people? Is it a new 8-year cycle? Is that correct? Would you say that to people?
It's a new 8-year cycle for Leo. And it's a new 1.6-year cycle for Venus.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. So can you just explain that a little bit? Because there'll be some people that won't know why that is the case.
I wonder if I have a slide about that. No, I don't have it in this particular one. Okay, let me show you on this chart. The 1.6 year is from January 22nd, 22, when the last retrograde of Venus occurred. In other words, when she was her last retrograde cazimi, closest to the Earth, conjunct the Sun.
Yeah.
And that was 18 Capricorn, and that was 19 months ago.
And that's the one we're leaving behind.
January of 2022. So that's the Venus. The end of Venus's 1.6-year cycle. In terms of the Leo 8-year cycle, Leo, where are we? Leo, where are you? Here we are. It wasn't, the last Leo's retrograde star point was 2015, August 15th, 2015. So people might want to look back to 2015, to that last Leo retrograde, especially if they have anything around 20 or 21 Leo, because the last one was 21 Leo. This one is 20 Leo. It's only moved 1 degree in 8 years, which is, something. So basically, we're, then Leo is forming a new 8-year pattern.
Yeah.
So Venus goes in 1.6 years from the inner star to the next star point to that one on the inside of the circle, not on the outside of the circle, because the ones in between the every other one is the direct.
Right.
So for instance, you would have Gemini might be retrograde, and then the next star point would be Aries, and it would be direct. And the one after that would be Capricorn, it would be retrograde. Then Scorpio would be direct, and then Leo would be retrograde. And, it just goes around like that. So in 8 years, Venus basically makes two full stars, not just one. She makes a full morning star set and she makes a full evening star set. Right. So that's kind of the important thing to know. So, but in terms of time, I want to kind of keep moving on here because I've got a guy. I know we're going to run out of time, and I think we want to get to our chart. So let me just buzz through these slides more quickly. If people want to learn more, take a class, watch some videos. I've got other programs that are on my website and ones that are coming up that we can delve deeper into this. But right now, I was just wanting to go through these kind of quickly just to give you an idea of, you can always look back at this later and study it on your own. This is again the 1.6 golden mean in action in nature, and they all emulate the beauty of the Venus star pattern created. And so we love to collect seashells at the sea. We've got many seashells that follow this pattern. Venus was said to be born from the sea in the mythology. We have the apple, which is very much a part of the Venus mythology in terms of the golden apple. The golden apple was tossed onto the table by Eris, and the prize was given to Venus. And of course, the apple also is what Eve took a bite out of and was expelled from the Garden of Eden. So there's a lot of things that are connected to the apple and Venus mythology and stories as well. But the apple contains 5 beautiful seeds in the middle, and some other fruits and flowers, lots of fruits and vegetables do, and have that spiral kind of imagery as well. This pentacle, this 5-pointed star pentacle, has the same mathematical equations as this golden mean spiral. So they're the same. If an artist were to draw it, it would be a spiral. If a mathematician were to draw it, it would probably be more like these 72-degree 5 points around a circle. So let's just get into the Leo star point of this particular cycle. It's the 10th of 29 Leo Cazimis that we will experience between 1987, when it began, and 2100, when it ends. It's actually one of the longest lasting star points of all signs. They usually average around 100 years. This one's 113 years. So Leo is the longest lasting, power to the Leo, power, strength, endurance, longevity. And it's only the 5th retrograde Leo Cazimi of the 14 that will occur in the 113-year cycle. So we're at the 5th one, which is another Venus number. So a magical kind of thing. But this is, again, the 5 stars that points that it's reaching. And this is our the heart of the lion. And I think there's more association with the heart in this one than you would maybe find in others, because the lion, actually the heart of the lion is Regulus. The star point of Leo was born at 29 Leo, which is conjunct the star Regulus. So when it came in the 1980s, and the whole 1980s, it was anticipating its birth. It was like, when the last Virgo one ended in 83, that was it. But if you are a Virgo star point born before 83, this is your star point now, because it's a continuation of the Virgo star point. It's the same point on the wheel, on the 5 points. It's just, moving slowly backwards. So consider, we would call this the Virgo Leo star, really, because it started in Virgo, and many people alive have this star point in Virgo. More people alive have it in Virgo than have it in Leo at this point in time. But in 10 or 20 years, that'll change. The Virgo star points will keep dying off, and the more Leo ones will keep being born. So we still have a lot of fluidity between the Virgo and Leo of the two generations of star points. And what does it really mean to us? Venus is the sister planet to Earth. We talked about the dual rulership, the two signs, Taurus and Libra. She has two myths about her birth. In fact, two Greek islands claim her birth, one in the east, interestingly, and one in the west, for morning, evening.
That's awesome.
And what is she really in our heart? It's pure love. It's untainted, untarnished love. What's the dark side of it? The blocks we have to love, to our heart. Fear, the fear of loving, the fear of our heart breaking. Our heart, as powerful as it is, it's what keeps us alive. When the heart stops, we're not alive anymore, right? But it is so fragile. It is so, so vulnerable to heartbreak and to, being and then shutting it down. And this is what I find for most people who are not operating from the highest, most loving place they can be operating from, is the fear of having their heart, giving their heart to something and, having it broken again. So this is part of the work of Venus. I mean, it's not like Venus doesn't have some assignments with it too. It's clearing the blocks to the heart.
She goes into the underworld, right? And has to go through 7 gates. That's her work, right? That's where she encounters death, literally, right? At the end, at least she's reborn. And that's a powerful story and metaphor for our own transformative work in our life, and how we can open our own heart more and realize that, everything is in cycles and rhythms, and nothing is permanent as well, and Venus is the perfect symbol, Venus star point, for that quality of rhythm in life, right?
Exactly. Right.
Okay.
So this is from my book, and people can go over all of these later. It takes a little while to go through each one.
Yeah.
This is like if we were doing a master class, we could go through each of these, but we've already talked about a lot of these principles already.
Yeah.
So
people can pause and read it and jot it down, and it's in your book, which I recommend. It's a great book. So yeah.
So this is the Venus retrograde cycle, courtesy of Chris Brennan Astrology podcast. He made this graphic, and there is the shadow, the pre-shadow, which began June 19 at 12 Leo. The retrograde began July 22nd, 23rd, depending on where you were in the world, at 28 Leo. The retrograde ends at 12 Leo on its pre-shadow on September 3rd, and the post-shadow ends on October 7th. Venus stays in Leo from June, July, August, September to early October, almost 5 months.
Amazing.
This year.
Amazing. And I'm
so Leo in your chart is like hot.
Yeah.
Baby, hot.
It's
right now.
It's a hot spot. It most certainly is. Yeah, I'm loving this energy. I've got Leo in my descendants, so I love the Leo energy. In others, in just experiencing it in my own heart. Just I love that sense of courage and fire and passion. You've got Venus in Leo. Surely you relate to that as well. Just that Leo lion archetype. And the lion, of course, was the predominant animal for Ishtar, Inanna, in Babylonian astrology. And
yeah,
I don't know if you're aware of this second thing I'm about to say, because I didn't know this. I just recently found out that the lion, you can almost not almost, you can consider it as like a second exaltation point for Venus. That is, Venus in Leo holds an exaltation position, as she does when she's in Pisces, for instance. That's how
I know, I didn't know that, but I did know that Venus, traditional astrologers say that Venus is in her joy when she's in the fifth house. And the fifth house is Leo's natural house. So
yes, so she's,
and I do have Venus in the fifth house and in Leo, but I never knew that I never put it all together. I mean, I never put it together that, you know, like this in this particular way until I started working more with this. And then I think you pointed out to me at one time too about the five, you know, all the fives in my Venus.
And now we can
you can't make this stuff up. We keep saying this, you can't make this stuff up.
Now you can add to your Venus in Leo at the 5th degree in the 5th house that she's exalted in Leo as per Babylonian astrology. That's why you're queen, that's why I called you earlier the Queen Mother of the Venus star. There it is.
Well, thank you. Maybe it carried over to the Minoan culture because this is a Minoan symbol of the queen bee in you know, the goddess that was worshipped in the Minoan period in Crete and also in Santorini and neighboring places before you know, everything, you know, the big flood, the tsunami, the flood, the volcano and all that. Okay, so
outside of this, can you at some stage take a picture and send it to me? Because I can't see it properly through the video, but I really want to see it up close, just as a side note, when you have time. I just would love to see
this one. This one.
Yes, the one you're wearing.
Well, you're gonna get. I'll send you all these slides. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about your necklace.
Oh, my necklace. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll give you a picture of that. Yeah.
All right.
So in 1987, when Venus came in, between 1983 and 1987, I know, I was going to say, I was waiting for this slide to say it. You are the embodiment of the Leo hair goddess, the queen of the hair. I mean, does that occur for you naturally, or do you work at getting that look?
No, this is my natural curl. This is my natural.
Wow.
But, you know, I mean, I do a little bit to style it. You know, I don't wake up with it exactly like this, but more or less, this is it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's stunning. It's beautiful.
Thank
But
you.
what I was going to say about this Venus Leo cycle was that try a new hairstyle, big and bold. Remember when remember the big hair bands of the 80s? It was like everybody was doing their hair.
Yeah, totally.
You know, be colorful. This is a watercolor of a beautiful lion with color. You know, change your color around, change your style a little bit, break out of a box.
That's a really good
Leo is the queen of performance art. Do something exciting, you know?
It's because I think when you do that as well, it, you know, it livens up that inner child. It brings in that joy. You know, we've got so much heaviness in the world. We all know that, right? We've had it consistently, particularly the last 3 years, and it can be so heavy, this reality. So this Leo Venus star point can reconnect us with joy again. That's what I feel. But we need to, you know, be sort of participating in that with Venus, you know, participating in being around with the energy, you know, connecting with that place inside of our nature and experiencing that, you know. So yeah.
And actually, when I think back to it, if you think of metal bands as being, you know, really masculine with their leather and their, you know, all that motorcycle look, it was basically them dressing up in a sense like women because their hair and their makeup, their jewelry, look at the earrings, the makeup, the eyeliner, the eyeshadow and the eyeliner, the lipstick, you know, they were they were presenting themselves as, kind of like very feminine,
Mm, mm,
but also very masculine.
mm,
There was something about this that had great power to it. I think when the masculine and the feminine are integrated at this level,
mm,
there is such great power, because when you're just operating outside of one polarity or the other at its extreme,
mm,
it's more vulnerable, it's not balanced. So this is more like a balance. You were saying earlier, and I wanted to add one thing to it, and I forgot, was that about the morning star, evening star, for instance, that the morning star operates more like Athena and the evening star operates more like Aphrodite. True. But also, if two of the main star points of our generation, of our lifetime, have been Aries and Scorpio, those are Mars,
mm.
underlying Mars energies.
Yeah.
And so even if you're an evening star Aries or an evening star Scorpio, you still have a lot of Martian energy uh, combining into that evening star energy. So it gives more of a balance that way. In fact, that's actually a beautiful way to even think about it. So here's some more big hair of the 80s. We have, it's funny to look back on this because considering we're still in the Leo star point, we do not have this look at all right now. The hair is so dull looking. When I was looking at pictures on the internet of people now, the big people out there, Taylor Swift and Beyonce and, all the ones that are out there, and their hair is just sort of, it's nice, but it's not like, and perhaps, of course that big hair has gone out of style, but it definitely came in, and I think it will come back again too, but it's gonna, and I was thinking about the last Leo star point, that was 250 years ago, that we're matching now, because the star point, wheel shifts every 250 years to the same 5 points it was 250 years ago, the same degrees and the same points. And so we're looking at, things like Marie Antoinette and the early British parliamentary people with the big wigs. For a long time, I thought the wig party meant, when I was a child and they talked about the wig party, I always thought it meant the wig party was because they were wearing wigs.
Well, yeah, I'm sure I thought that as well. That's I never
Anyway, but
thought about it.
anyway, not necessarily. I think it was WHIG, but but this is how a child thinks, wig. Oh, they're the wig party. Look at their hair.
That's beautiful. That's just innocence, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of big hair, this is Tina Turner. This is her chart. She was a Virgo star point, evening star. And of course, this Leo is a continuation of the Virgo star point. So, but what's interesting is Virgo star points tend to be in service of others, and they tend to live their life through dedication and devotion and service to a cause, service to a person, service to a whatever, and something that you deeply believe in. And they can have self-esteem issues, Virgos, they have to develop confidence, self-confidence. So they are easily in service to somebody else who they feel will accept them and, love them, because Virgos can also be very self-critical and very, but she knew she had talent. She wanted to sing. She met Ike. So through the whole Virgo start point until it changed to Leo, she was working through and as a part of the Ike and Tina Turner review. And she was in service to that, to him. She had no power, no authority, no say in what happened. She just was put on stage. You're going to sing. This is how you're going to dress. This is how you're going to look. This is how you're going to sound. You know, this was all controlled outside of her by someone else. Of course, and I do a thorough investigation of her chart in another webinar that I've done. About when the star point changed to Leo and when she left Ike and went out on her own. But when she became a solo star on her own, Leo had come in, the Leo star point had come in, and she had taken her power. So Virgo star points that were alive before 1987 might see a similar shift in their own life at that time, in the late 80s, going into the 90s and the early 2000s. And when I read about her biography, one of the things that was said was that she is one of the biggest success stories of a musical comeback in history, in terms of, you know, after she left Ike, she had a little bit of success on her own. She had no money. She was in huge debt. She owed so much money for legal fees and canceled concert things and all kinds of contracts that she was not fulfilling. And so she started with nothing basically then, and had to build her way back up from scratch. And she had some early success then, but then she kind of leveled off for a while and wasn't really, you know, went into her own little underworld, went into her own Inanna's journey, and came back in the 80s. And it was just smashing the way she came back, because, as they said, it was one of the biggest comebacks. In when she came out with, in the mid 80s, when she came out with the album Private Dancer and the song What's Love Got to Do with It, based on her biography, which she went deep into to write about, and she had to go through into all that pain. She did Inanna's journey because she was the queen with all her adornments, and she had to let go of them completely and start over again and come back, you know, to her throne, to reclaim her throne.
That's awesome.
So I think it's a beautiful story of what can happen. And so if you're at that place in your life, really, where you're down, where you feel like you've been stripped to the bone, you're naked, you're on that meat hook, you're in the underworld, you don't really have any foreseeable future or life ahead of you, don't think that way, because everything is cyclical. And what goes up comes down, what is down comes back up. And so it's just a matter of time until, you know, the ascent happens again, like Venus in the sky.
So true. So true. Yeah, which is really inspiring to think about that. And I'm sure a lot of people, you know, would have a story to tell in that, across that kind of theme. You know, a lot of people have suffered and, you know, fallen really, really to the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, and then they've just come, you know, rising back up again, you know. So it can happen to anyone, right, at any given moment, really, you know. So that's
Definitely.
That's really interesting, with Tina Turner and just the transition of that Virgo into the Leo, and how that really defined those chapters in her life, you know, big chapters. Yeah, that's amazing.
That's a big thing. If your star point changes signs, like Scorpio star points have just changed to Libra, you're a Scorpio star point. You're going to feel that. You're going to feel some really big and different kinds of things happening in your life from here on out. There's one more Scorpio star point to happen in 2026. So it's the final finishing up of whatever past.
Yeah.
But from here on out, it's going to be Libra for you. So things are going to change, and you're going to start witnessing those changes. Yeah. Yeah.
Looking forward to that, Ariel. I've had enough of the Scorpio. I love the Scorpio Venus star point. I shouldn't say that. I love it. It's just I don't even have.
Well, we're going to talk about that with Sinead because she has one.
Correct.
And there's definitely some high notes in the Scorpio star point, and there's some very low notes as well.
Yes.
And yeah. And I mean, similarly, if you look at all 5 points of anybody's stars born in our timeline since the 1920s, 1926 specifically, when the Scorpio star came in, all of us have a Scorpio star point. It may not be our head, our main star point, but it can be hands, it could be a hand, it could be a foot. So somewhere we've had that Scorpio, we have felt that transition process in our life whenever that star point has hit a Scorpio degree in our chart, and it comes back every 4 years, every 8 years, every 4 years, every 8 years. It comes back and it reawakens a theme of, okay, what am I still tuning into, letting go of, and emptying out so that I have new information, new, and mainly Scorpio has to do with feelings. It has to do with emotions, and it is a water sign, and it holds on to feelings and past, attachments, let's say. So a lot of it has to do with that, and letting go and grieving what is gone, allowing it to be gone, but never forgotten. It may be gone in the physical, but it's not forgotten. It's still very much alive within you.
That is so true.
Let's see what else I have. I just wanted to introduce a few of the Leo star points of our time. Leos have style. The Leo star points carry a lot of glamour and style. And this is a quote from Rihanna, which couldn't be more appropriate to what we're talking about. I've always believed that when you follow your heart or your gut, when you really follow the things that feel great to you, you can never lose, because settling is the worst feeling in the world. And I actually loved the term, we may know the concept, but I loved the term settling. How many times have we said, well, I settled for this?
Yeah.
And even that phrase is used when you're negotiating in a legal situation. Well, what was the settlement?
Yeah.
In other words, what did you accept even though it wasn't what you deserved? Kind of thing. So I think that's a good point to remember. Spoken like a true Leo. And Timothy Chalamet, who I adore, but when he first came out, he's a very talented actor. But when he first came out, one of the things I loved about him most was his hair. I thought, oh, he's, and it didn't even occur to me that he has the Leo hair, but he does. There's one of the things I'm talking about in the current batch of star point of current celebrities. They don't really have the Leo hair that was happening in the 80s. Rihanna, more than anybody, probably does of this group, but this is how you find your Venus star point. Go to the PDF. You can download it from my website and put it on your phone, carry it with you wherever you go, and it will tell you how to find not only your star point, but everybody in your life that you want to look up, and the 5 star points that you were born in around you, so that you can track them and also see where the 5 star points are at any given time. And this is a little graphic you can use to mark your star points on, you can make a little graphic like this or print this out and basically do graph your own star points on this. These are the things I've learned since my first discovery of it. It is a beautiful design. It's uplifting. I think if you meditate on a star, there's something that can't make you go down. It kind of lifts you up. It kind of brings you up. Just the whole energy of it. It is the cosmic heartbeat of our world. It's also the divine feminine principle of our solar system. And it is really simple to find, to track, to follow. And putting it in your astrological charts is really going to light up that sign, light up that house, light up the theme in your life that's all about that. And just how to just simply, very simply and easily track it. It's a movement through your life, through time. It moves really steadily clockwise going through the chart. So it's not hard to follow at all. Just see where it's going. And being in sync with Venus brings harmony and relationship to one's life. So I think that about says it. These are the two books if you want to get a hold of them. One's the print book, one's the ebook, which is much more abridged and easier. No graphs and charts. This one's got all the astronomical and chart information in it. And really, lots of things at my website, courses, free archives, study opportunities, teacher training opportunities to become a certified Venus Star Point teacher and practitioner, all sorts of things available. So have at it, and blessings. And I will turn this over to Anastasia.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing all of that, Arielle. That was wonderful and very fun as well, which I expected it to be because it's Venus in Leo. Yeah. Okay. So I will try to get through this as quickly as possible. The fact is that I've got way more information than we've probably got time for at the moment. And we're frozen. Why have we frozen? What's happening? Oh dear. Everything's frozen. Oh, hello, you're there.
There we are.
Everything just froze for me. I couldn't make anything move. I couldn't hear you. I couldn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm back. So I was just saying that I'll try and get through this as quickly as possible, because we both have to get moving, and there's a lot here. I'm not going to be able to go into it all, but anyway, we'll just look at a few things. So this is Sinead O'Connor's chart as per the time given on her information. So in other words, I haven't rectified it. Okay, so God, where do I begin? So she's a Scorpio evening star at birth. That was her Venus star point. And that's very, very interesting unto itself, which why did I stop that again? Which I wanted to
make notes on this.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll come back to my question in a moment. But anyway, her Venus star point is conjunct her south node. And we can say it's got a wide conjunction to these planets here as well. The 12th house is obviously a very significant house for her. There's quite a few things. Where do I begin? Just before I go to the star point, just a couple little highlights with the power of asteroids, because these are really important. There's actually an asteroid called Singer, as in a person who sings. That asteroid, right, it was conjunct her Pluto when she passed away. The transiting asteroid Singer was conjunct.
Wow.
The asteroid Connors, her surname, was also conjunct her Pluto the day she died.
Wow. Connor Singer was conjunct Pluto.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can we make this stuff up, or is this universe kind of laughing at us?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. Mind-boggling. Asteroid Osiris, which is a lord of the underworld, was conjunct her south node when she died. Asteroid Atropos, which is a Greek name, which is a mythology. You probably know who that is. Atropos, the one that spins the cloth.
One of the three fates, yeah.
Right. That was conjunct her north node when she died. So there's heaps of powerful asteroid stuff there. They're the main ones, though, that I think are really worth noting and mentioning. From the point of view of other stuff, transiting Saturn was square her ascendant, which is really important because Saturn is, at worst, it's life denying, and the ascendant is life itself. It's birth, body, life, right? So the fact that that was there, I thought was interesting. The Libran Venus star point, 29 degrees. I know it's a bit far from the moon, but, you know, we can play around with that notion because it was, you know, relatively close to her moon. Her secondary progressed Mars is conjunct her moon when she passed away, which I think is important because Mars rules her IC. That's the end of life, the end of matters. And also the Venus Libran star point is conjunct her secondary progressed Mars as well. So those three are together, as it were.
You know, and I was thinking about these arguments that astrologers have about what house system you use, and my feeling about it is whatever works for you is going to work. But I think all the house systems have validity because they're going to tell you something in a different way. And when you mentioned Saturn right around 5 degrees Pisces when she died, exactly square her ascendant, if you're looking at equal houses, you would see that Saturn at 5 Pisces would be right at the IC, which is also the end of life. And so, you know, even there's a case to be made for that, or a case to be made for even the whole sign houses, which people would use, and then it would be 0 Sag and 0 Pisces at the IC, but on Saturn right there and the end at the end of life. But your case is also noted well with the Mars and the IC as well.
Yeah.
And we've got the we had the last Aries star point right at her IC. She's between the two Aries star points, 5 and 3.
Exactly. That was another thing I was going to mention as well.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a little bit iffy with the angles of the chart because this chart hasn't been rectified, and you know, if it gets rectified, those degrees might change. So, you know, Saturn is not the main one that I'm sort of really focused on. There's so much else anyway, but I just thought it's worth mentioning symbolically with what the first house represents and what Saturn represents. It's so obvious, right, from that perspective. Scorpio's secondary progressed moon in her 12th house at the time of her death. 12th house is endings, of course, as well. Moon, secondary progressed moon in Scorpio is pretty difficult. Moon in Scorpio, I think, is pretty difficult, right? Now, just going sort of rewinding, when her Scorpio Venus star point, which was an evening star when she was born, she released her first album in 1987, and the name of that album was called The Lion and the Cobra.
How interesting.
That just blew my mind when I saw that, because that's her Scorpio Venus star point and the Leo Venus star point coming into the wheel, right? And that's the name of her album, The Lion and the Cobra. I thought that was just mind-boggling. When she transcended, Venus was at around about 28 degrees of Leo, which happens to be the same spot of where the Leo star point was when her first album was released. It's the same sign, same degree. So just another connection there. Venus, when she transcended. Now I had a look, and it's interesting because the information that's given online, I was trying to find time of birth, right? And couldn't find that. In fact, they're sort of debating at the moment the exact day she died, because whilst it was announced on the 26th, I think it was the 26th of July, 27th of July, that they found her on the 26th, but it hasn't been confirmed exactly what day she died. She might have dated a day before that. That hasn't been clarified yet. But in any case, what I noticed was that Venus in Dublin, Ireland, or in London, UK, was invisible, had already become invisible in the sky at that time. And that in Babylonian astrology is a really big deal, and often corresponds to famous people dying as well when Venus is invisible. It's a pretty difficult period when Venus goes invisible. Not a nice time. By the way, she was born with Venus.
And it was an evening star, but it was invisible.
Right. And she was born.
An evening star, but already retrograde, coming back to the sun. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty important passage, right? That's when she left at that time. It's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
And when she was born, her Venus was invisible as well. And as per Babylonian astrology, when Venus is invisible at birth, it can be pretty difficult in the soul's journey and life relative to love, and she was married 4 times. She had 4 children. One committed suicide, I think it was last year. She had a lot of deep turmoil and pain and suffering that she went through. Look at that 12th house. And her Scorpio Venus star point is conjunct her south node very closely, because her Scorpio star point is 16 degrees. So I wanted to ask you, Arielle, what you thought about the Venus star point being conjunct the south node. What are your thoughts on that? Pardon me.
That you're reincarnated to play over certain things in your life with specific people, that there are relationships that are unresolved. If this chart is right, but even if it's not, something else will indicate in her other chart that she had unfinished business, and that she reincarnated to come in to resolve those things, that she probably died in another life, before, either imprisoned or being executed for speaking out against something she believed in, or against the ruling lawyer. She has Mercury and Scorpio in the 12th, which is a voice for the people, conjunct Neptune, a voice for the people, for the suffering, for the victims of abuse and of power, abuses of power, which of course she did, and she was maligned for it in this life too. So she replayed some of that. But Venus star point conjunct the south node specifically is very much about unfinished business and coming back to marry. Okay, 4 marriages, but those were all most likely, if you delve into their charts and the relationships, I would say that they were most likely karmic relationships that had to be finished one way or another, that she had to complete in this life before she could move on. And so she was moving through these relationships, all with the and it was all about I think the theme here is all about having the courage, like we spoke about earlier, to stand up to power and authority, to be heard, to be seen, to be respected for her point of view. Which I think she worked very hard on. But that's just the Scorpio. That's just the start point with the South Node. When we take in Scorpio, we're entering another realm. Scorpio star points, more than any other group, and I'm not saying this applies to all Scorpio star points, but when I see the amount of people that have either taken their own life through overdose of drugs or some other self abuse or unhealthy pattern of addiction, it's tied to suffering emotionally and pain that could not be resolved, they could not work with, and thus the pills or the the drugs or whatever to escape from that sort of internal prison that they found themselves in. Because Scorpio goes really to the depths. They explore their shadow, they explore the dark side. Now, many people explore their shadows in the dark side, but Scorpios, as you know, dive very deeply. And sometimes they dive a little bit too deeply. They dive so deep that they don't know, what to do with it once they're there. Thus, I've always said to Scorpio star points, you either are a shaman or you need a shaman, meaning you can go to those realms, you can navigate through those realms, but you're going to come across terrain that you're actually going to scare the living wits out of you, and you're not going to know how to handle it. So therefore, it's best to have a shaman or a leader to take you on journeys through the dimensions of your soul, which is what you're really trying to connect with anyway in life, to identify for you what is keeping you locked in a kind of self-imposed prison of your past, of your guilt, of your shame, of your sorrow, of your grief, of your whatever it is that happened back there, that you've, taking responsibility for things that maybe were not yours, like somebody in her family committing suicide. How must this feel to a mother? Oh, it must be my fault. It must be, I'm to blame for this, heaviness of the heart. We're talking before about the Venus star point in terms of how does it bring you to the greatest love possible, or how does it keep you from it? Fear and pain block it, keep the heart closed, keep you from it. So I think her journey in life was through a lot of dark passages. And of course, Pluto's very prominently configured in her chart, as you pointed out here too. But 12th house Scorpio South Node, that's a bundle of issues that she is working with. Bless her for what she did speak to. As I said, she had the courage and the strength to speak to power. She suffered greatly as a result of it. Again, she must have gone through a tremendous amount of pain in the aftermath of that, being forced by different people to make apologies. And yet this is what's happening to a lot of celebrities today. They say things that are very meaningful. They say things that are in their heart mind to say, but then they're forced to retract them or apologize, to keep their fan base or to keep the whatever. And I think she was manipulated this way, and that she never really was able to find her true power, though she kept striving to find it in different ways.
Yeah, I think though with Sinead, at least from what I've read and what I do understand about her everything you've spoken to relative to the Scorpio 12th house stuff, I completely agree with that, hands down. I think that 12th house is complex beyond our own comprehension. There's so much there, right, that we don't even know for sure, past life stuff, etc. But her whole pain and suffering really was primarily hooked into her mother, actually. She suffered, according to her own words, that is, she suffered tremendous abuse, including sexual abuse, physical, emotional, psychological, all from her own mother. Then her mother died in a car accident when Sinead was just 18. She never reconciled that grief, that pain, that trauma, that everything. And she loved her mother so much. She hated her, but she absolutely adored her as well. It was a very deeply complex mother-daughter relationship. So whilst Sinead was a speaker, what's the word? An advocate, particularly against the Catholic Church and the abuse that had gone on there. That's really how it all started. That's what she started speaking to and about.
Yeah.
It was, she wasn't scared of the world. She wasn't scared of rulers. She wasn't scared of dictators. She wasn't scared of the system. Look at this, she's a Sun, Uranus, and Venus as well. Pluto and Uranus are square her Sun. Anyone who has Sun, Uranus are going to rock the boat, and they're going to do it outside of that consensus reality, and they're going to break it all open for everyone to see. They're not scared. They have to rock that boat. That's what she did. She was not scared of that world out there and what the apparent consequences might be. Her whole career went down the tube when she tore up that picture of the Pope back in the 90s, I think.
Yeah.
She didn't care. She wasn't doing music for money and fame. She really wasn't. She just happened to be naturally talented and gifted. And what she got out of her music was healing. That was her expressing her pain and trauma and how she healed herself. Not completely, because I don't think any of us really do heal ourselves completely. It's an ongoing work in progress, right? So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that she wasn't afraid about the world as such. Her deep pain is all this 12th house stuff that was highly linked to her mother. That was the unresolved trauma and grief that lingered, and that there was a show, I think it was about maybe 6 years ago, where she spoke publicly about the trauma and the abuse relative to what her mother did to her and so forth. And you could see in that and listen when she was talking that she loves her mother. Then there was another video where she was totally, it looked like she was just so broken. She couldn't be more broken than when you saw her in this particular video, which wasn't too long before her actual passing. And it was like an Instagram public video she made where she was bawling her eyes out. She was shattered. This was all activated from her son's suicide, of course. And she was just expressing and communicating publicly that she could not deal with that deep pain anymore. It was just so dark, so heavy. She couldn't do it. It was killing her. And her own family support were not there for her. That was the other thing that was breaking her. So all her heartache and pain and past life stuff and so forth, it's all linked to the family dynamics, essentially.
Yeah. The people she needed to reincarnate with, to come back into again, to see and to deal with all these relationships and the power with her mother, the power issues with her mother. Because Saturn and Chiron are very tightly conjoined, and Saturn can be a father figure, it can be a mother figure, it can be an authority figure, even the church, Saturn in Pisces.
It is.
So the woundedness, the Chiron conjunct the Saturn, is the woundedness that one feels in the face of authority and all of that. And of course, those aspects are, as you mentioned, they're in a kind of a wide square to the sun, but definitely in a much closer square to Venus.
Oh yeah.
I was going to ask you if you know her biography real well. I was just looking at some star points here. That in 1988 to 1992, we had Gemini star points hitting 22 degrees, and at that point, her Venus would have been activated from across the way from Gemini. It would have also squared her Saturn Chiron. It would have also squared her Pluto Uranus midpoint. So that would have been, and activated her Neptune as well. That would have been, those years would have been really critically important in her life. And I've seen the Venus, same in Tina Turner's life, when the Venus star point in Gemini came to her Venus in Sagittarius by opposition and square to her Neptune in Virgo by square, because she had the Venus Neptune square. When Venus came to that in those years, that's when she really broke out and became a public icon, you know, like top of the world, and never left that position for the rest of her life.
Well, that's interesting, because I think relative to that time frame that you've mentioned, for Sinead at least, I think that coincides for when she ripped up that picture of the Pope, right? So
wouldn't it make sense?
Yeah.
Here she was on one of the biggest stages in the world, which was Saturday Night Live, which is broadcast to how many countries around the world, and you know, has a huge audience following. And so there's Venus. She had the big opportunity to be front and center. You said she didn't really seek out fame. That wasn't what she wanted, but there she was. She had the opportunity to be on stage. But then it was also squaring her Saturn, her Chiron, her Uranus, her Pluto at the same time.
Yeah, and that's probably the Chiron especially. That's the backlash of the rejection, because Chiron is about rejection. At the heart,
yeah.
Chiron is about being rejected, because that's what his parents did to him, right? So
yes, right.
That was her getting the because there was so many people that were
right
so deeply offended, by that act that she did. But she planned the whole thing. So, she could have used that stage to promote herself and her music and her artistry, but she used it to actually do the Scorpio thing and expose something that was, trying to hide, as it were.
No, it reminded me of the old story of the old when Marlon Brando was awarded the Oscar for Best Actor for The Godfather, he refused to come to the Oscars. Instead, he sent Native American woman who read something about something he had written and something that she presented about the treatment of Native Americans and so forth. And she was booed off the stage. She was, since then, Hollywood has made, complete apologies to her and whatnot, but it took a long, long time for that to happen. And I think similarly with Sinead, there was a lot of time in between when, where do you go from there?
Yeah. Look, it's complex, and we could talk about this for hours, and there's heaps more that I haven't even been able to bring in, but I think we probably should close it up for now anyway.
Yeah, it's time. I've got to go soon anyway. Coming on 12:30 here. So basically, any parting thoughts about this that you want to address, or
about our whole talk today, or about Sinead, or
well, just that chart or anything. Yeah, anything about the Venus Leo Kazemi. Anything that maybe we haven't touched on?
Not nothing that I can sort of put into just a couple of words. So what I will say is that it was awesome meeting up with you. It was really lovely to sit and chat again and just share, you know, our own sort of ideas and feelings about all this stuff. So it was great to have that opportunity again, and for my viewers as well, to get to see you and listen to you talk. So I mean, for me, I always feel inspired when I talk about Venus anyway, but I really feel something very visceral about this Leo Venus star point. And there is one thing that I'd like to say, but it only applies to people who live southern latitude, Melbourne particularly, and that is that Venus will not be invisible at all in August.
You know, I heard that. One of the other astrologers I follow from Melbourne said that Venus was going to be, you know, seen rising and seen setting and seen rising, one after another.
So basically, I found this out because, you know, as I mentioned to you before we came on to do our talk, that I've been studying some Babylonian astrology, right? And so this is the program that so I'll just bring up Sinead's chart. So with this program, this is a program by Rumen Kolev, who's like, he's just from the ancient world, you know, just come back into this world, right? That's really what he is. This is his program. He's written the whole thing, created it, etc. This is Sinead's chart actually, and this is as per the Babylonian zodiac, but you can shift it over to the tropical. If you just click that button over there, then it takes you to the it's a bit hard to read initially. It's really complex to explain and so on and so forth. But the reason I bring it up is because I just want to show you that, let me just grab a highlighter to make it easier. What is this? 8 December 66. 737. So there's Venus there. Something's amiss here. Let me think. What's happened? Is that her time? 7:37? Is that the time that I was working with before? Let me see. Yeah, 7:37. Ireland. Dublin, Ireland. Look, something's amiss there, and I can't figure out what it is. But it doesn't really matter. This is what this program. This is what a chart looks like when you use this program, for instance. There are all the constellations in the background. That yellow circle is the ecliptic. So that's, you know, the sun's pathway, for instance. The way we are seeing this at the moment is as though we're using her Babylonian birthday, as it were, the Babylonian zodiac, which does shift things, as you know. It's the same as the sidereal, for instance. But what this program does, which is remarkable, is, as you can see on the left up here, there's this window, and you can go to dynamic, which means you can just step forward 1 day, 1 month, 1 week, 1 year, etc. And what he's done in his program is that when Venus, or any planet for that matter, is invisible, it fades out to a grey color. That's how you know. You just click it over a day at a time. And with Venus, it's very easy because it doesn't take long for her to go invisible and you know, become visible again, for instance. So you don't have to sit there for hours, is what I'm getting at. And so I was playing around with it, and I noticed that Venus wasn't going invisible in Melbourne. And I was thinking, what the hell's going on here? So I emailed Rumen, the gentleman of this program, whom I've recently done a webinar with as well. That is, I took one of his webinars on ancient Venus. So I've learned a lot of this from him. And I said to him, what's going on with Venus? It looks like she's not going invisible, you know, that can't be right. And he's like, yes, it is. She never goes invisible in the month of August in Melbourne. How bizarre is it? So
it's only in this season at that latitude. Yeah.
right. But this phenomena does happen at other times, at other places as well. It's not a regular occurrence, but it does happen. And so,
in the northern hemisphere, it happens in Aries sometimes, the Aries star point going in and out of it will be sometimes that you can see it rise and then set. I mean, set and then rise immediately.
Right.
Because the setting visibility takes a lot longer after it comes up. It's an evening star, as you know. The eastern rising happens quite quickly after the cazimi. The western reappearance takes much longer.
Right, exactly.
Due to the speed of Venus and the sun and how they're traveling together and the direction.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So this is that's a beautiful chart display. I would love at some point to get into that and look at it more carefully, but is this what you're going to be teaching, the model you're going to be teaching from in your class?
Well, at some point I will teach this stuff, but I've got 47 subjects that I'm teaching.
Wow, 47? Is that all?
This is the pentagram as per this program. We won't go into it now, but if you want, you and I can go into this another time together. But just to let you know,
yeah, I have to go pretty quickly here.
We'll leave it. But anyway, it's incredible material that I can, yeah. So Melbourne.
Okay.
Venus is not invisible in Melbourne. And
so you are graced with Venus completely. It's totally disappeared. And what you were saying earlier was, I went out to sunset one night and there was no Venus. I mean, one night there was Venus, and then the next time I went out to watch it, there was no Venus. And so it rapidly, once it starts going down and, heading towards morning star, heading towards retrograde cazimi, it leaves quickly. So you got to catch it while you can.
Absolutely.
But we had many, many months of beautiful observation in the West, and I look forward to see what this the internal fire that is turning up from the interior of the Venus star retrograde, which is what happens. And these are particularly fiery periods in the world too, not just because it's Leo or we're seeing these fires breaking out everywhere. Right now we're dealing with Maui, but we're also, we've had fires in Greece, we've had fires all over the planet. But in a retrograde, as we come to the retrograde Venus star closest to the Earth, its magnetic energy has a lot of things erupting into flames and, breaking out and exploding and all of that. So during this retrograde period, even though it's a beautiful time to connect to the inner heart space and to go deep within and to come out renewed and refreshed, it can be very turbulent times in the world.
Agreed. And to that, I would just add that from a personal perspective for all of us, that I think the more you trust your own heart on anything, the deeper you go into your heart, the more you trust that no matter what appears in any direction, right? The more aligned you are also with the script, which is your chart as well, right? And the Leo Venus star point, I think, speaks so much to that. Square Uranus, be authentic to your heart, right? To what your heart really feels connected with, whatever that is, right? That's,
right.
That would be my final
kind
of thought or message from the heart, not even a thought.
Exactly. Right.
All right.
Okay, it was so nice being here with you today, from heart to heart, from the north to the south, from the east to the west, from Greece to Australia. And one of these days, we hope you'll grace yourself on this land, your homeland, and join us for either an event or just join us in person. Just be here.
Absolutely, I will. Yeah, I will. Absolutely, and thank you.
So salutations to everyone down under there, and enjoy the rest of your winter going into spring, and this Leo Kazemi. Blessings to you all.
Yeah, Venus blessings to everybody. Thank you so much, Arielle. Thank you.
Okay, I'll
Bye.
say goodbye for now.
Yasu, Kalinichta.